Hi, everyone. Welcome to track 2. The session that you have joined, in case you didn't know, is on-demand content process and video workflow. It's with myself and Nimmers Stern, who's going to turn on his video shortly. If you are looking for Globalizing DAM Function, a deep look at the explosion of working as one when the DAM staff and user base is truly global with Novartis, that would be on the other track. That would be track 1. And if you're looking for running a small but mighty DAM team, a day in the life of a senior DAM manager, that would be in track 3. But of course, we want you to stay here because this is going to be a really great session. I am especially excited about this session. I had planned to be on my bicycle for this session. Personally, I think one of the great benefits of the pandemic for me is that I am as fit as I have ever been, because there was no excuse to not exercise during the last 18 months. And I have a trainer on my balcony and a bicycle, and I love Peloton Interactive, and I love all kinds of like course simulations. I've done all kinds of stuff in addition to caught up on many series that I hadn't watched over the years. So I'm excited to be joined by Nimmers today. Nimmers, do you want to just introduce yourself and maybe just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, a little bit about your career history?
Absolutely. Thank you, Theresa, and thanks for having me here today. It's great to be invited to a forum like this and to sort of talk about our experiences. So often sort of what we do happens in the shadows and happens in dark rooms. So, to sort of be able to get together like this and sort of share information, I think is super valuable. So yeah, I'm currently the director of video production at Peloton, Peloton Interactive, if you like. I've been at the company 4 years now. And, in that time, I've just seen this hyper growth company just, really booming in many different directions. Like Theresa, I love fitness. So it's really exciting for me to have, be working at a company that does align with my values and something I genuinely enjoy doing. And, I love sort of being here. A little bit about myself. I'm currently in New York, but hail originally from Sydney, Australia. Came here just on 14 years ago now. And, I just hustled as a freelance editor to start off with, doing a lot of reality shows here, lots of, short projects here and there. Over the time, I sort of stepped more into producer editing, or as they call it, predator, which is a strange title, but, kind of very often I was looking at places like Vice or really high turnover, places that, they would just give me the footage and say, hey, cut something. And, it was a great learning experience and plenty of other things going on there. But, I'm very thankful to have a full-time job now, especially, when all this sort of hit. And, I like I was saying earlier, I really love what the company's doing. We have one team solely dedicated to class footage, like you see over my shoulder here. Like we used to produce 24 hours of content a day. It's probably more now because we've got a London studio, we've got a New York studio, and each of them has 3 or 4 fitness rooms happening at once. So that side of the business is handled by an incredibly efficient team and what have you. I sit in the creative team, and our vertical is known as brand image. And so, my team is made up predominantly of editors, animators, a colorist, and then we outsource things like sound mixing or, 3D renders and things like that. I currently have a team of about, between the full-timers and the freelancers, roughly 30 people. We're just moving into our new HQ. We've got basically 150 people who now to fit into 75 seats. So, that's it. As soon as we moved in, we were supposed to move in last year, but with the pandemic, obviously things have changed. But I imagine we'll sort of talk about, just that work-home experience and how critical a tool like this is.
Yes, that might be a good place to start. I mean, as a video. Sure. As a video producer, and that you're the head of video production, what happened when the pandemic hit? I mean, you were probably working in a production studio, like you said, a lot of video production teams, they're like in these dark studios with lots of screens, and then all of a sudden, obviously you weren't. So how did that change your workflow and process when all that happened, when you all suddenly went home?
Yeah, that was an interesting day. It was like, okay, everyone go home, take your computers. We don't know what's happening. Let's get everybody a hard drive so that they can download stuff at least and be able to work independently. But yeah, we had set up a server maybe like 3 or 4 months before that, which was, which was a godsend. For me personally, I love being able to go up to people's rooms or desks and just chat through projects and see where things are at. Once we went virtual, everything was make an appointment, set up a time to talk to me. It did slow down our process a little bit. Mm-hmm. Having said that, my team loves working from home. Like they have no, they don't need necessarily to come into the office to do their work. So, it is a little bit of a balance there. And, I think in the early days, we weren't really sure what was going on, right? It was really just like, get out the next project, see where we were going, and then project for the next month. It was just sort of getting through all of that. But,
is there an effect in terms of so you're dealing with these big files. I mean, were you dealing with local drives before? And when you said you set up a server, was it in the cloud? Can you maybe talk about what was there a technical solution that you had to have, I guess, would be the question as well.
Okay, yeah. So the server we have is called the Jellyfish. It's by LumaForge. Cool. And, we kind of like that. We thought that it was kind of modular. We'd be able to sort of expand it as we need. And then there was sort of like an automatic cloud backup system that it would just sort of back everything up. Hopefully we'll never have to recall anything from the cloud. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the idea was to be able to give ourselves more space as we needed it. So what would happen is, like I said, everyone sort of took a drive and downloaded all the files that they were currently working on and everything they were going to need. And the editors could work fine, pretty well. When we got to color, that's when we really hit a snag, because to then transfer all the raw files back to our colorist for her to download all of that, any kind of uploading and downloading big files from the server on a domestic Wi-Fi connection is problematic. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we were doing a project with the ESPN where they wanted raw files, 3 of our instructors, and it was literally, days of work. And we were just like, look, let's just put it on a drive and, courier it up to them in Connecticut. Like, mm-hmm. That's going to be the easiest way to solve that. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to resort to that, right? We do have to just put it on a drive and send it to someone. Yeah. It's only a handful of situations where we've had to, do that. Yeah. But, we like to review in person, right? We love to have all our stakeholders in a room. We love to read the room and see what it's like. Mm. Other places I've worked at, we would just send edits to people, or we would have one of these, apps where you'd sort of send them and then they'd write notes and that would be enough. But at this company, we really do like to be in person. So as far as presenting work, that represented another challenge, right? Because you place something on a Google Meet or even a Zoom, sometimes it's laggy, it doesn't sound right. So our solve for that was just like send a link to everybody on the meeting, have everyone go on mute, watch the thing, come back, talk about it. So, that's how we adapt. But, we realized we're managing, right? It's still working, but we are sort of thinking of the next phase of all this, of how do we create an equally valid experience both at home and in the office? Yeah. Because we are talking about like a 3-day week in the office and 2 days at home, and some people might have to be remote permanently. And so this upload download situation is something that we do need to solve for, and we are currently in that process now.
Yeah, I think hybrid is the new normal, definitely. I think for all kinds of companies, but definitely with video production, it presents special challenges, doesn't it? So sure. We've got some questions coming in already. I just want to remind everybody who's on the session, please put your questions in the Q&A tab, and we'll definitely get them addressed. I see there's some some activity there already. I think I'll just dive into the first user question since they're coming in. Mary wants to know how much of the on-demand and sort of creative on-the-fly workflows are something that you encourage the creative team to utilize, or have you branched out to providing more creative in a box applications for end users? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what she means by that.
Yeah, now that I'm reading through it as well, and I'm a little bit confused. Mary, maybe if you can clarify exactly what you mean. I think what she's talking about is how are there on the fly workflows that you can adapt as you go versus are they more systematized? I think that's what she means. And or do you actually have programmed workflows? I mean, that's even a good question, because I know some workflow systems, they let you say, okay, send this to Joe next or send this to Mary next. And then there's other ones that are sort of more rigid than that. I think that's what she's looking for.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a satisfying answer for that one.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to be on the fly, right? Like you have to be ready to adapt all the time. Yeah, we have processes and procedures, and yeah, we were like, hey, we need to have this. Animators are always, barking at me. They don't have enough time. They haven't had enough heads up. They're coming into the conversation too late. But we then just sort of have to wing it anyway. So, I think you have to build in flexibility into all that. And again, I can keep it open if Mary
no, I think that's a great. I think that's a great comment. I mean, it's definitely the case that it's tough to. You can't really make creativity rigid, can you? It's not always linear, is it? Right. So.
Oh, like we have stakeholders who don't understand what picture lock means, right? Yeah, the picture's locked. We're sending it to color. We're sending it to a sound mix and what have you. And then they're like, oh no, we just want to change one thing. Well, we have to unpack the whole thing again. So we have processes, but if the people above you and around you aren't following them, then you've sort of got to play catch up sometimes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just we have a few more questions here. I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit more about the initial kind of setup of what you're using? Is it sort of a workflow system and a media asset management system? Is it a DAM system, separate workflow? And kind of talk about what sorts of technologies you're using?
I can try. Yeah. I say that because we're in the process of sort of evolving something new. So I can talk about what we have right now. And, MAM is a big part of this. What the content team, like the ones who do this, or, us who are predominantly doing marketing assets or web assets or things like that. Obviously our workflows are very different, but I think whereas we worked very independently up until now, we are finding that there is value in finding one MAM we can all sort of be a part of. We will very often have to request classes from them. There's often instances where we need to share files, and that process was very clunky. But in terms of like our prioritization, having a server, having a centralized place where all the files live was almost more important than the MAM at that point. Yeah. Because, it was really affecting our productivity. So, MAM is definitely, I think our MAM will be good to go in, say, March. And that is a really big company initiative across the board. Sure. And when things like that happen, it's easy to get on board, right? Because those guys, fund themselves. For us to just sort of tack onto that is a lot easier than me going out and trying to, start this thing from the ground up. Right. And so we've been privy to some of those conversations, product demos, things like that. And yeah, it all sounds cool. You can type in a word that you're looking for in a class, and they can pull up all the classes. And we have to do closed captioning for all our classes anyway. So that. If we can sort of create like a text library that is searchable, that is a really great way for us to, there's almost too much content for you to be able to really go through and find those gems. So, we've got to find other ways of finding those moments in class. Yeah. As far as the DAM's concerned, that was supposed to that is something our creative team is, currently has. And that was supposed to be like an intermediary between our department and agencies that we're working with or other stakeholders at the company. And, we thought that was going to be a really nice centralized place where we could put finished product and finished edits, and you could search by instructor or by product or what have you, and get everything. The limitation there was size, like the one we were looking at was 1 terabyte. And, that's one project for us. Yeah, and more often than not, when an agency wants files from us, they're going to want the raw files. They're going to want, everything we didn't use, and, we're thinking of using. So, that's really where we're at as far as improving that process. Because, like I was saying about the ESPN example, it's just gets so clunky when we're all, separated like this.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, I'd even just have like an assistant in the office, right? An assistant who is closer to the server, who can take drives and upload them, right? Just that proximity would be a game changer for us. Instead, we literally have to have one person dedicated to just, when a shoot finishes, upload it and spend a day or two with it,
making sure that it gets on there. Yeah.
So that was an adjustment we had to sort of make on the fly, and had to sort of get that head approved, or at least a freelancer for that. And, we like to budget 12 months in advance. We like to sort of know what's coming down, but, this COVID threw everything up, upside down.
Well, someone asked, what's the most useful tool that's been added as a result of, remote working, or that has made remote, is there any additional tool that you are using that has made your remote working easier? Or was it just the dam itself, really, that kind of made it possible?
Yeah, it's the server. Yeah. For me, there's before the server and now.
Yeah.
It's it's just night and day there. Now. Yeah. Yeah. So like to me, that was everything. I'm trying to think of other things off the top. This, like I say, presenting is a big part of it. Yeah. And
you're doing that on a Zoom thing?
Yeah. Or? So that experience has improved, right? If in the past, where we were all in a conference room and one person was dialing in, it'd be a really inferior experience, and that person really couldn't contribute to the meeting or give meaningful feedback. At least now, with things like Zoom and Google, well, we do use Zoom now. Like that has changed things incredibly. I can't, like I say, if we were having this conversation in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, I could talk about all the new things we've brought in. But up until now, it's just been things like that.
All right. Well, probably you'll be at the New York conference next year, and you can tell everybody about it then. Cool. So somebody asked, what's the biggest challenges that your team has faced? So let's kind of put COVID and remote working aside, because I think we've already talked about that. But specifically when it comes to the process of video production, and kind of, how are you addressing those challenges?
I think it's the fact that we're in a multidisciplinary department. Okay, so we've got video, we've got design, we've got photo and retouching and that whole business, and then copy and packaging and all those sorts of things. I'll sort of leave them out for this example, but yeah, the expectation is that all those deliverables come together at the same time, and we review them as a package, right? Like, well, let's see the video component, and we all work in a very different way, and we sort of trying to teach people of different backgrounds why we need this lead time, right? Why we can't just go in and change a word or a text just like that. A lot of it is education. Now, what's interesting about the video team, which might not necessarily be for those other disciplines, is very often we'll send projects out of house, right? We'll send them to production partners or agencies to complete, because we just might not be set up for a certain thing, or it's too big a project. There's a whole list of reasons why we might do that. And in that case, all Peloton's doing is showing up, giving creative feedback, and everything else is happening in the background. And the expectation is that we'll do the same thing in-house. But It just doesn't work that way. We just can't jump and pivot as quickly as those guys who are used to working in that environment. So you know, a particular, I think what we have is we'll have, like, say, a media department who has done their research and is asking for, say, 60 deliverables, right? They want to have so many different versions and what have you, and that gets briefed in, and then we'll go. And then, so 3 weeks later, they'll get new information and they'll want to update it, and then they want to add another 20 deliverables, all for the same day. That presents problems, right? It's like, well, if you were doing this with an outside agency, they'd say, okay, show me the money. But because we're internal, it's kind of like, just do it, like, figure out a way. So I think that's part of the challenge there. It's like, it's not always a fair fight. You know, we're expected to do we do agency level work, but we are sort of doing it in I think, a scrappier, more efficient way. Okay.
Yeah, it's it kind of affirms a lot of what you said before about you can't make it too rigid. You know, it needs to be a little bit more scrappy. Someone specifically was wondering what solutions you're using to transcode and deliver video content. Is that something you're willing to share?
Oh yeah, that's Adobe. That's Adobe Media Encoder. Straight away, yeah. I mean, we love the Adobe suite. You know, our editors use Premiere. Our animators mostly use After Effects. And then, you know, for us to use Media Encoder totally makes sense there. You know, we'll use things like Cinema 4D on occasion. But yeah, they're the big ones. So, you know, when everything's all in the same suite, it really does make things a lot easier. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about sort of buy-in for investing in technology. Obviously, you are a company that's delivering video content, you know, as your product. So it's perhaps a little bit easier than it is for a lot of other organizations to justify getting a DAM or getting a MAM. Did you have to go through a business case process or anything to actually get corporate approval? And can you share how you went about that?
Yeah, I mean, that really was the most challenging thing for me. And you know, if I was to do it again, I'd probably just want to refine my approach a little bit. Because yeah, even though we are a media company, you'd think, oh, this is a no-brainer. But yeah, for the longest time, our system was, I think, was referred to as sneaker gate, right? Like, you just have a row, literally one room was like from one side to the other, just the floor had drives across it all the way. And you have to find the drive, find the power supply, plug it in. Is that file on that drive? Like, it was driving me crazy. And I don't want to disrupt it. We didn't have an assistant editor at the time. I didn't want to disrupt our editors who were working. So yeah, that process becomes very tiresome. But from the corporate level, they go, well, hang on, it's working. You know, we haven't had a major disaster. You know, you're able to do all this. And, you know, even on a security level, right? Like, it's not secure to have drives just sitting around like that. It needs to be, you know, like that. So as I was talking to our IT team, they all got it, right? They understood why it was needed, etc. But to get the dollars, to get the money, you really have to, you know, my manager is trying to prioritize many departments. And he's trying to say, well, look, efficiencies on the video editing team versus a video that's going to sell more bikes, you know, that's a business decision. And what actually happened was he gave me half of what I needed. And then I'm like, okay. And then we filled it up within 3 days, right? Like, it's like, and now I need the other half, right? Like, I hate to say it, but sometimes things have to fail before people get the point. Now, it's my job to preempt that, right? To make sure that it doesn't get to that stage. And what I was referring to in my approach, you know, the sort of, hey, we're drowning, help us here, is not always the most, you know, well received, you know, message, as opposed to, hey, you know, help me help you, sort of a thing, you know. Yeah. That was the other thing I was trying to. I don't know how I would do it differently, quite honestly, because I think it is a personality thing, and you know, I was jumping up and down and trying to get, you know, trying to explain how important it was. Yeah. And really, his response was, well, I don't want to just invest in a system for one part of the team. It has to work for everyone. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the designers, well, their files are really light. They do everything on Dropbox. They want to be able to close their computer and go home and keep working. And well, great for them. You know, like lucky for them. So yeah, that's the tug of war sometimes. You know, I mean, I think they're trying to, they're trying to think holistically, and that makes sense. But I think even within that, each department does need a tailored solution. And yeah, it might have behoved me to to be a little bit more strategic than emotional.
Well, sometimes if it gets it done, you can sort of address everybody else later. Perhaps if at least your department got what it needed, then that was a good thing. Somebody else asked actually about following up on the hard drive issue, saying, wondering, have you tried any of the cloud specific transfer services? Were they just too slow? And is that why you're still sticking to the? Yeah,
well, at the time, I don't know if it's different now, but we didn't feel like editors could work directly off files in the cloud, right? Like still editors would have to download from the cloud locally to their drive or what have you, work on the project and then upload it back up. Whereas with the server, we feel like we could access those files directly and, pull things in all the time. Again, all those computers in the office were cabled. We'd have optic fiber running to everyone, so it was really a high-speed connection, and you could work efficiently.
Yeah.
Ironically, now we're back to drives again because we can't do that. So an editor at the end of each project has to then reconcile their project back up to the server, which is at this point may as well be a cloud because it's not in the room anymore. But yeah, I think like I've heard about. So a friend of mine works at ABC TV station.
Yep.
And he was working in Iowa on his computer in New York during COVID, and they just had all their systems working. I'm not so sure that solution would be ideal for us, but it might be. Yeah.
Okay. So if you had advice for people who were starting out on a new sort of video production tool initiative, like trying to improve their video production workflows, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think organization is key. I think even like I've been here 4 years, and that was the start of this department, if you like. But we were still very startup-y at that point, even then. We were still very scrappy, and get the job done, sure, but it was challenging. But yeah, you do kind of have to sort of future-proof your organization, start thinking about even things like naming convention and how all that works, because it is important. As soon as somebody says, oh, do you have that campaign from 3 years ago? You've got to kind of produce that pretty quickly. And as our international team over in London was sort of forming and developing, I was like, yeah, you need a central place to house everything, because individual drives really should just be temporary solutions. Everything should be coming to one centralized location and then backed up. I think our consultant referred to it as 3-2-1, 3 copies, 2 locations, and I don't know what the one was.
one deployment, I would guess. Or
yeah, like you've got to have a backup for the backup, essentially, right? Yeah. And so in that case, the drives are our third backup. But our backup is the cloud. Yeah. And then the server being, our working tool. So if you can't afford a server off the bat, I would really just get as much, as big a storage as you can afford or you can get, and start going at it that way.